I thought we'd have a little fun today and go back to the beginning. The first book in the Horus Heresy, Horus Rising, The Seeds of Heresy Are Sown. It's hard to understand where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And there's way more in the Warhammer world that I want to read, Eisenhorn specifically, but I let my boyfriend borrow my omnibus. So when I go visit him next, I will do a reading from Eisenhorn. But Horus Rising is interesting because this really isn't the story of Horus. It is, but it isn't. Horus is almost a second character to Garviel Loken. If you read any of the Warhammer novellas, look in the first couple of pages and they have the dramatis personae, and they're basically listed in order of who matters. And I usually don't go through the people, but for this, just to level set and so you know who people are, because there's a lot of characters in the chapter I'm going to read, I want you to know who the people are. So let's do that first, and then we'll get into the reading. So the Primarchs that are featured in Horus Rising, because the Primarchs are all cool with each other. In the first half of Horus Rising, everybody's cool. It's in the rest of Horus Rising that it's like, oh, things have changed. But of course, the Primarchs are Horus. He is the first Primarch, not number one in order of creation, but number one as far as when the Emperor found him and started warring across the galaxy. But he's the first Primarch, War Master, Commander-in-Chief of the Luna Wolves. And remember, it was the Emperor of Mankind that actually forced the title of War Master onto Horus. Horus didn't want the title, but then he was given the title and then it went to his head. I mean, even if he's a demigod, he's still human. Human's gonna human. And then there's Rogel Dorn. He's the Primarch of the Imperial Fist, and Sanguinius, the Primarch of the Blood Angels. So we won't get to all of these dramatis personae today, but the ones you need to know about. Ezekiel Abaddon, a first captain of the Luna Wolves. His last name's Abaddon, who knew he was evil. That's a whole demon, by the way. Tarek Tregadden, a captain of the Second Company. Who else do I need you to know about? Oh, Horus Aximon. They call him Little Horus because he looks exactly like the War Master. And then I need you to know about the one that this book is really about is Garviel Loken. He is the captain of the 10th Company, and in this Horus Rising, he gets brought into Horus's inner circle of advisors called the Mournival. So it's four of Horus's captains: Ezekiel Abaddon, Tarek Tregadden, Garviel Loken, and who's my last guy? Help me. Ezekiel Abaddon, Tarek Tregadden, Garviel Loken, Horus Aximond. Yeah, that's all of them. Brain went places. So they are the Mournival. And as Horus becomes more corrupted, two of the Mournival members, his inner circle, are on Team Horus, and two of them are on Team Emperor. Basically, what it turns out, Garviel Loken ends up being a very important character in the history of the Horus Heresy. And I don't want to spoil any books, but if you've read Flight of the Eisenstein, if you know, you know. We're going to get to Flight of Eisenstein. But because of his loyalty to the Emperor over Horus, after learning about the corruption and all of that kind of thing, when he fled on the Eisenstein with others loyal to the Emperor, they were actually intercepted on Terra by Malkador the Sigillite. And the seeds for the Inquisition were laid, basically. The first iteration of the Inquisition was created from Garviel Loken and his compatriots that got out of all of the bad that Horus did and got word to Terra that Horus had turned against the Emperor. You'll also hear some folks from other legions, but not their Primarchs. So Erebus from the Word Bearers. We remember who they are, the bearers of the word. He's the first chaplain, which this is interesting because at this time, I believe the Word Bearers are the only legion that have chaplains, because dabbling in the forbidden arts, well, it's forbidden. And Lorgar got a whole talking to about not dabbling in the forbidden arts. at the Council of Nike. So there's that. And then there's Sigismund. He's the first captain of the Imperial Fist. So you've got legions that are loyal, legions that are not, and then whatever's happening with the Astartes in the middle, which kind of reflects, the political systems that are out there. Like in America, I can only speak to the system I live in, but we have a two-party system. There's those people, and then there's the actual citizens. And if you dig deep enough, you realize the people making the decisions don't really care what's going on with the citizens. They care about what's going on with them and their power. I believe also in the chapter I'm going to read, I'm looking to see if there's anyone else. We might hear from some of the imperial personae. Remember that during the Great Conquest across the galaxy, Horus is War Master. They've sent out a lot of remembrancers into the fleets to kind of record the great deeds that they're doing as they bring all of humanity back to the Emperor. Blah, 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 blah. So we've got Cinderman, Ignatz Karski, Mercedes Olaton, Euphrates Keeler, and a whole bunch more. So there's a lot of characters. But what we need to understand is that when people are finding out that Horus is not what they thought he was, when Horus is finding out he's not who he thought he was, people have to pick sides. And when those lines are drawn, there's no going back. You are either for the Emperor and mankind, or you are for Horus, and chaos is just having a grand old time. And the Eldar out there just trying to, keep the disease that is humanity from spreading across the universe. Okay, that's only a little funny. My bad. So I'm going to flip some pages to where I would like to read. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Let's get into Horus Rising by Dan Abnett. The seeds of heresy are sown. Impasse, illumination, the wolf and the moon. They all rose as the War Master entered the room. It was a large chamber in the Extranus compound where the Imperials met for their regular briefings. Large shield glass windows overlook the tumbling terraces of the forested city and the glittering ocean beyond. Horus waited silently while Vox officers and servitors from the Masters of Vox Company finished their routine sweep for spyware, and only spoke once they had activated the portable obscurement device in the corner of the room. The distant melodies of the aria were immediately blanked out. 2 weeks without a solid agreement, Horus said. Nor even a mutually acceptable scheme of how to continue. They regard us with a mixture of curiosity and caution, and hold us at arm's length. Any commentary? We've exhausted all possibilities, Lord, Malagurst said. To the extent that I fear we are wasting our time. They will admit to nothing but a willingness to open and pursue ambassadorial links with a view to trade and some cultural exchange. They will not be led on the subject of alliance or compliance, Abaddon remarked quietly. An attempt to enforce our will here, said Horus, would only confirm their worst opinions of us. We cannot force them into compliance. We can, said Abaddon. Then I'm saying we shouldn't, Horus replied. Since when have we worried about hurting people's feelings, Lord? Abaddon asked. Whatever our differences, these are humans. It is their duty and their density to join with us and stand with us for the primary glory of Terra. If they will not, he let his words hang. Horus frowned. Someone else. It seems certain that the Interrex has no wish to join us in our work, said Ralderon. They will not commit to a war, nor do they share our goals and ideals. They are content with pursuing their own destiny. Sanguinius said nothing. He allowed his chapter master to weigh in with the opinion of the Blood Angels, but kept his own considerable influence for Horus's ears alone. Maybe they fear we will try to conquer them, Logan said. Maybe they are right, said Abaddon. They are deviant in their ways, too deviant for us to embrace them without forcing change. We will not have war here, said Horus. We cannot afford it. We cannot afford to open up a conflict on this front. Not at this time. Not on the vast scale of subduing the Interrex would demand. If they even need subduing. Ezekiel has a valid point, said Erebus quietly. The Interrex, for good reasons, I'm sure, have built a society that is too greatly at variance to model of human culture that the Emperor has proclaimed. Unless they show a willingness to adapt, they must by necessity be regarded as enemies to our cause. Perhaps the Emperor's model is too stringent, said the War Master. There was a pause. Several of those present glanced at each other in quiet unease. Oh, come on, Sanguinius exclaimed, breaking the silence. I see those looks. Are you honestly nursing concerns that our War Master is contemplating defiance of the Emperor? His father? He laughed out loud at the very notion and forced a few smiles to the surface. Abaddon was not smiling. The Emperor, beloved of all, he began, enfranchised us to do his bidding and make his known space safe for human habitation. His edicts are unequivocal. We must suffer not the alien, nor the uncontrolled psyker, safeguard against the darkness of the warp, and unify the dislocated pockets of mankind. That is our charge. Anything else is sacrilege and against his wishes. And one of his wishes, said Horus, was that I should be War Master, his sole regent, and strive to make his dreams a reality. The crusade was born out of the age of strife, Ezekiel, born out of war. Our ruthless approach of conquest and cleansing was formulated in a time when every alien form we met was hostile. Every fragment of humanity that was not with us was profoundly opposed to us. War was the only answer. There was no room for subtlety. But 2 centuries have passed, and different problems face us. The bulk of war is over. That is why the Emperor returned to Terra and left us to finish the work. Ezekiel. The people of the Interrex are clearly not monsters, nor resolute foes. I believe that if the Emperor were with us today, he would immediately embrace the need for adaptation. He would not want us to wantonly destroy that which there is no good reason to destroy. It is precisely to make such choices that he has placed his trust in me. He looked round at them all. He trusts me to make the decisions he would make. He trusts me to make no mistakes. I must be allowed the freedom to interpret policy on his behalf. I will not be forced into violence simply to satisfy some slavish expectation. Let's move forward in our story. Parting shots. The sons of Horus. Anathema. What was taken? Mercedes Olaton asked. An anathema, so they claim. One weapon. We didn't take it, Loken said, stripping off the last of his battered armor. We took nothing. The killing was for nothing. She shrugged. She took a sheaf of papers from her gown. They were Carcassi's latest offerings, and she had to come to the arming chamber on the pretense of delivering them. In truth, she was hoping to learn what had befallen on Zenobia. Will you tell me? She asked. He looked up. There was dried blood on his face and hands. Yes. The Battle of Zenobia Principis lasted until dawn and engulfed much of the city. At the first sign of commotion, unable to establish contact with either the War Master or the fleet, Abaddon and Aximon had mobilized 2 companies of the Lunar Wolves, garrisoned at the Extranas. In the streets of the surrounding compound area, the people of the Interrex got their first taste of power of the Imperial Astartes. In the years to come, they would experience a good deal more, Abaddon in wrathful mood, so much that Aximon had to rein him back on several occasions. It was Aximon's units that first reached the embattled War Master on the upper tier near the Hall of Devices, and fought a route to him, the cream of the Nod's army. Abaddon's forces had struck several of the city's control stations and restored communications. The fleet was already moving in response to the apparent threat to the War Master and the Imperial parties on the ground. As the Interrex warships moved to engage, the landing assaults began, led by Sidare and Targost. With communications restored, a full-scale extraction was coordinated, drawing all Imperial personnel from the Extranas and from fighting zones in the streets. Horus sent one final communique to the Interrex. He expected no response and received none. Far too much blood had been spilled and destruction wrought for relations to be soothed by diplomacy. Nevertheless, Horus expressed his bitter regret at the turn of events, lamented that the Interrex for acting in such a heavy hand, and repeated once again his unequivocal denial that the Imperium had committed any of the crimes of which it stood accused. When the ships of the expedition returned to Imperial space some weeks later, the War Master had a decree proclaimed. He told the Morninval that upon reflection, he had reconsidered the importance of defining his role and the relationship of his legion to that role. Henceforth, the Lunar Wolves would be known as the Sons of Horus. The news was well received. In the quiet corners of the flagship, Krill Cinderman was told by some of his iterators and approved the decision before turning back to books that he was the first person to read in 1,000 years. In the bustle of the retreat, the remembrancers, many of whom had been extracted from the Extranas by the Astartes' efforts, cheered and drank to the new name. Ignatz Carcassi sank in a drink to the honor of the Legion, and Captain Loken in particular, and then had another one just to be sure. In her private room, Euphrates Keeler knelt by her secret shrine and thanked her God, the Emperor of mankind, in the simple terms of the Lectitio Divinitatis, praising him for giving strong and honorable men to protect them, sons of Horus all. Air hummed down rusting ducts and flues. Darkness pulled in the belly of vaults of the vengeful spirit, in the bilges where even the lowliest ranked proto-servitors seldom strayed. Only vermin lived here, insect, lice, and rats gnawing a putrid existence in the corroded bowels of the ancient ship. By the light of a single candle, he held a strange blade up and watched how the glow of the concrusted off its edges. The blade was rippled along its length, gray like a napped flint, and caught the light with glitter like a diamond. A fine thing, a beautiful thing, a cosmos-changing thing. He could feel the promise within it breathing, the promise and the curse. Slowly, Erebus lowered the anatheme and placed it in its casket and closed the lid. And that's all. We tried, said Loken. We tried to bond with them. It was a brave thing, a noble attempt. War would have been easier, but it failed. Yes, he said. Loken had taken up the lapping powder and cloth and was working at the scratches and gouges on his breastplate, knowing full well the scars were too deep this time. He'd have to fetch the armorers. So it was a tragedy, she asked. Yes, he nodded. But not of our making. I've never felt so sure. Of what? She asked. Horus, as War Master, as the Emperor's proxy, I've never questioned it. But seeing him there, seeing what he was trying to do, I've never felt so sure the Emperor made the right choice. What happens now? With the Interrex, I imagine attempts will be made to broker peace. The priority will be low, for the Interrex are marginal and show no inclination to get involved in our affairs. If peace fails, then in time a military expedition will be drawn up. And for us, are you allowed to tell me the expedition's orders? Loken smiled and shrugged. We are due to rendezvous with the 203rd Fleet in a month at Sardis prior to a campaign of compliance in the Caetus cluster. But on the way, a brief detour. We're to settle a minor dispute, an old tally, if you will. First Chaplain Erebus has asked the War Master to intercede. We'll be there and gone again in a week or so. Intercede? Where? A little moon, Loken said. In the Darwin system. So yeah, if you know what happens on Darwin, that's real ominous. So that was fun. It's so hard to choose what to read out of these amazing novels, and you know, Dan Abnett is the GOAT. But it's fun to just pick and choose. Please don't strike me, Black Library. I love you. I just love reading your stuff. I'll never read an entire novel online. No. I just want more people to read these books. But yeah, please do read the entire thing. And I've been getting good suggestions below, and some books I haven't even heard of yet. So I'm super excited to dive into lore and books that I haven't gotten to. So keep the suggestions coming. And again, contest still going. 500 followers on the Instagram and the YouTube, and nerdy prizes. See, those two, these are old Star Trek figures and very old and still in the box. So those are probably going to be two of the giveaways that I get. But y'all are getting me there. Thank you so much. But I'm going to keep reading if y'all plan on keep watching. So yeah, see y'all in the next one. Bye.